So let's talk about information security. But I want you to forget about firewalls and antivirus software for a minute. Because real security, it's not about the tech. It's about people. It's about planning. And it's about policy. At its heart, it's about strategy. And to really get a handle on the strategy of the future, you know where we have to look? The distant past. Over 2,000 years ago, the general Sun Tzu wrote this. And it's as true today as it was then. Knowing your enemy is one thing, but knowing yourself, that's the key to victory. And believe it or not, this ancient wisdom is the absolute bedrock of modern information security. So that's the big question, right? What can some military strategist from ancient China possibly teach us about protecting a corporate network today? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. And it all starts with understanding who's actually leading the charge. See, in any organization, you've got your generals on the battlefield. But in the corporate world, they come in two flavors: leaders and managers. And I know we use those words interchangeably sometimes, but they are not the same thing at all. Okay, so let's break this down. A leader's job, it's all about influence. They're the ones who provide the purpose, the direction, the motivation. They give everyone the why. You can think of them as the ones setting the destination on the map. A manager, on the other hand, well, they administer the resources. They're dealing with the budget, the people, the logistics, the how. They are meticulously plotting the course to get to that destination the leader pointed out. For security to really work, you absolutely need both. And you know, leadership isn't just one size fits all. You've got your autocratic leaders, the ones who make all the decisions alone. It's basically my way or the highway. Then there are democratic leaders who actually ask for input from the team. And finally, you have laissez-faire leaders who are super hands-off. Now, just think for a second. Which style do you think is best for security? The truth is, they can all work, but the style of leadership is going to dramatically, and I mean dramatically, shape how secure an organization really is. All right, so you've got your generals in place. What's next? Well, they need a battle plan. And when it comes to information security, the most effective plans, they always come from the top. And this is what we call strategic planning. This isn't about deciding what to do tomorrow morning. Nope, this is about defining the vision for the next 5, maybe even 10 years. It's that high-level map that makes sure every single security decision, no matter how small, actually lines up with where the business as a whole is trying to go. Now, this is what I find really interesting. Look how this flows. It's a hierarchy, right? At the very top, you have the overall corporate strategy set by the CEO. That then dictates the strategy for IT and operations. From there, all of that feeds into the InfoSec strategy, and only then does it get broken down into smaller tactical plans, and eventually into the day-to-day stuff for the security teams on the ground. It's like a waterfall of intent, flowing from the very top all the way down. This is what we mean by a top-down approach. It's kicked off by senior management, which guarantees that security has the budget, the support, and crucially, the strategic alignment it needs to actually work. The opposite of this is a bottom-up approach. That's where, the IT staff tries to push new security ideas upward. And while they mean well, those efforts usually fall flat. Why? Because they just don't have that high-level vision or the buy-in from the people holding the purse strings. Okay, so you've got your leaders, you've got your plan, but how do you make sure every single person, from the CEO to the intern, actually follows that plan correctly? Well, you need clear, unambiguous rules of engagement. In other words, you need policy. And right here, we've arrived at one of the great and honestly most frustrating ironies of corporate life. An organization will spend a fortune, literally a fortune, on fancy security technology. But the single most important document, the policy that's supposed to govern how all the humans behave, it just sits there, gathering digital dust. This is such a brilliant way to visualize this. It's called the bullseye model. Picture your security in layers, right? At the very core, the center of the bullseye, you have your critical apps and systems. Protecting them, you have your networks. But look at that outermost layer, the very first line of defense. It's policy. If that layer breaks, everything inside of it is suddenly at risk. Here's the thing. A policy isn't some magic spell you can just write down and expect to work. For a policy to have any chance, employees have to actually read it. Then they have to understand what it's telling them to do. And finally, they need to formally agree to follow it. But the breakdown? It almost always happens in those first 2 steps, the read and the understood. And this is where it all comes together. Look at this. This is an analysis of a real security policy. That reading ease score is 25.8. You know what you want for a normal corporate document? Something between 60 and 70. This thing is officially rated as very difficult to read. But it gets worse. The grade level required to understand it is 14.3. That's college-level reading. We are handing our employees a document that is as dense as a scientific paper, and then we act surprised when they don't follow the rules? So this is the key takeaway, the thing I really want you to remember. The goal of a security policy isn't to be legally perfect or to list every possible technical detail. The one and only goal is to be understood. Effective security isn't about creating complex rules. It's about creating shared comprehension across the entire company. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. Think about your own workplace. Your company almost certainly has a security policy somewhere. But take a really hard look at it. Was it written to be a useful tool to help people understand how to stay safe? Or was it just written to check a box for an audit? Because the answer to that question, that could be the single biggest vulnerability you have.